I'm Jonathan Watt, and we're here in the break room at the headquarters of Atara Group International. We hope you're enjoying our series on dining with ancient people in the Bible. And if you are, please press the like button and subscribe to our channel. We've had some interesting experiences that have ranged between some rather straightforward meals and then some with odd twists and turns and some pretty strange dining experiences as well. We've explored the concepts of hospitality, food, and drink. And today, what we're going to do is look a little bit at how we enhance meals a bit. We've talked about that with salt. We're now going to expand that a little bit and whether you're feeling spicy and want to use some spices in your food as well. I mean, after all, what's a good meal without some kind of an appropriate seasoning and spice to go with the food? Spices are aromatic, even pungent vegetable substances that are added to flavor food to give food a taste that it didn't naturally have by itself. For example, let's take paprika. Paprika is actually made from peppers. Maybe you like to bake, so spices like cloves, ginger, cinnamon, nutmeg come to mind. Or maybe you like to cook and you season with bay leaves, or perhaps you use curry. And curry, in fact, is a spice that actually is a mixture of a variety of different spices, and there's different kinds of curry. Anyway, spices give a change to something that might be plain. For example, some old ground beef, and depending on the spices you add to it, you can make a dish, perhaps a taco, or perhaps a special kind of hamburger, maybe a bowl of chili, something like that. The spices are what we use, and frankly, most people today, at least, and probably in much of history, don't cook meals without some kind of spice being added to it. Spices cross time, culture, and space, and not surprisingly, they're included in the Bible as well. We're going to have a glance at some of those today. So let's take some examples. Let's go to Exodus chapter 30. God directs Moses to add certain kinds of spices, such as myrrh and cinnamon, to the oils, particularly the vegetable oils, usually olive oil, that are being used, for example, to anoint the tent of meeting. So a particular smell is associated with the tent of meeting. Similar kind of a makeup is used for anointing the utensils, like the altar that's being used in the tent of meeting, where people worshiped Yahweh, the God of the Old Testament, as he is named there. They're associating what is being, even in the incense burning, smells associated with the worship of God. And these spice-filled oils, well, filled everything and marked everything that was dedicated to the worship of God. Quite a diversity of uses for spices, certainly then, and I think today as well. Anyway, here's an interesting discovery. Roughly 35 years ago, archaeologists at Hebrew University in Jerusalem announced that they had unearthed a small clay flask, and it was set out and left in the sun for a while, and the oil that was inside it, they didn't know it was there, started to seep through the pores of the clay, and they realized what they had was an oil and spice mixture that had been used to anoint perhaps priests, perhaps something else related to the worship of God, way back thousands of years. A fascinating piece of evidence relating to, well, basically the times of the Exodus and beyond. Now, more recently, a similar discovery has been made. Archaeologists have discovered hints of wine that was mixed with vanilla. And at the time of the fall of Jerusalem to the Babylonians in 587, 86 BC, the wealthy were not only drinking wine, as many people were, but wine specifically flavored with vanilla to give it that extra taste and texture. Vanilla gives us the evidence that Eastern and African trade routes were connecting with the Middle East thousands of years ago, and it's showing up with evidence in the biblical times as well. Now let's move to the New Testament a little bit. Most people have heard of the Magi. The Magi were advisors to Eastern kings, and they come at the time of the birth of Jesus to recognize him. And most people know this. They brought with them gold. But what else do they bring with them? Well, frankincense and myrrh. And here we have things that are based on resins drawn from certain trees mixed with spices, adding an aroma, burning it as an incense, and it was considered a wonderful gift, especially on the happy occasion of a newborn child, especially one with a royal future. Spices were also being used medicinally. So, for example, take the occasion of the time when Mary anoints Jesus' feet with a spice marked oil, a spikenard mixed with various spices, and the oil and the application of it to Jesus draws criticism from Judas, among others, for this extravagant act of devotion. Well, what does Jesus do? Jesus defends what she did as a, catch this, preparation for his forthcoming death and burial. He praised Mary openly and emphatically, marking it as a foreshadowing of what was going to be the preparation for his burial after his death. By the way, later in the same gospel, Gospel of John, chapter 19, after the death of Jesus, Nicodemus brings a mixture of myrrh and aloes to the tune of 75 pounds worth of this to anoint the body of Jesus, a traditional part of the preparation for his burial. So, as you can see by these samples, spices were an integral part of Jewish culture in the Old Testament and in the New Testament for worship, for burial, of course being used for food, but by no means limited to foods. And they mark different aspects of just our human existence: food, drink, worship, burial. The tastes were wonderful, and often with the events in the Bible, it's clear different smells are being associated with different and special kinds of an events. That brings us to an interesting metaphor that shows up in the book of Colossians, chapter 4. Paul is giving advice in the latter part of this book to people on how they should behave towards each other, but also towards outsiders. And he uses this in a very interesting way. He says, let your speech be, as it were, seasoned with salt, especially with a view to those who are outsiders. In other words, those who don't associate with the Christian faith and don't identify with it. And he's telling us basically by this positive association of taste and a little bit of smell as well, to be good to others, to do good for others, to express ourselves thoughtfully and kindly when we talk to anyone, but certainly and especially when we talk to those who are outside of our familiar faith. Let your conversation be seasoned, as it were, with salt. Anyway, to bring it all together, seasoning can help us remember how to be considerate towards others. It can help us to remember how to build up others and make it something, a good experience, which of course spices and other flavor enhancers tend to do. Encourage others, point them toward choices and life habits that are good ones. These are things that are positive in our experience and should be a good picture and emblem of the positive things in life. Hope you're enjoying the series as we delve into spices and enhancers again today.